Everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at another 35mm SLR. I'm kind of addicted to these. Well, addicted to all cameras really, but particularly SLRs of the 35mm variety. Today we're looking at Konica, and this is the last camera that Konica designed and produced themselves prior to the merger with with Minolta, sorry. So it came Konica Minolta. This was their last camera that they made. There was a TCX camera that came out later, but that was subcontracted out to Cosina. Cosina, for those that don't know, is the go-to third-party manufacturer. They've been used by Olympus. The OM-2000 was made by Cosina. Nikon have used them, I think, for the FG-20. And yeah, thing with lenses, I think Voigtlander lenses are made by Cosina, so they've got quite a good reputation for manufacturing. They do have their own line of stuff, particularly lenses, but they don't seem to be particularly highly regarded. Anyway, this is the FT-1 motor. This supersedes the previous camera, which was the FS1, and that was the first camera to have an integrated motor wind. You've probably seen me repairing an Olympus winder. In the 70s, auto winders and motor drives were attachments. They were big bulky things with lots of batteries that you had to bolt onto the bottom of the camera. This one actually has the motor built in, the same as the FS1. The FS1 came out in 1979 and ran through to 1983 when this model was launched. And then this went through until 1987. So they weren't made for very long. It was a time of rapid change in the camera industry, things like the internal wind and also autofocus as well. Konica themselves never made any autofocus cameras. It was only when they joined forces by buying Minolta that could happen. At the time, they were all part of a big imaging division. Konica and Minolta both make photocopiers just the same as Canon do, and they continue to do so to this day. Just in 2006 they sold the Konica Minolta imaging business, the camera side of it, to Sony, and Sony continued to use the Alpha mount, which came from Minolta, and a lot of history went into Sony. People think Sony's not really got much of a reputation with cameras, and why are they doing so well? Well, if you take Konica, for example, they existed for over 100 years, so there's a lot of experience, etc. Let's take an overview of the front. Pretty ugly sort of looking camera. It's available in the all black finish as well as the chrome. The black finish was always seen as a bit more exclusive. Sometimes they were a bit more expensive. But they were seen more as a pro sort of camera, and this was aimed at the professional market, but it's pretty hopeless in competition with Nikon, Canon and say the likes of Olympus, for example. It's a metal body with polycarb exterior. Top plate I think is metal, bottom plate is metal chassis, but on this side, because it has an electronic shutter release, you can't use a cable release with it. This is the start of having to buy dedicated accessories, and this is where things like the invalometer, there was also a wireless remote control system for it, as well as there was an optional shutter button, so you could have the shutter button on this side as well as on the top if you're a left-handed person. It's just in the right place for having another shutter button. That was an optional extra, which I don't have. The bottom here we've got the lens release button, so you push it in, turn it anti-clockwise, and take it off, and you can see inside it's pretty standard layout. This is the AR mount, so if you see lenses that say they're AR, this is the sort of cameras that they're for. They're not very easily adaptable to DSLRs, but they're very adaptable to mirrorless because of the flange depth, which is the distance between the lens and the film. Okay, on this side we have an LED. This is for the self timer, and we have this sort of built-in grip on this side, obviously the name and the name. On the back some interesting features here. This is the frame counter, it sits at the top up here. When it gets to the end of the film, this LED illuminates to tell you that the film's finished, it can't wind on anymore. There isn't a power rewind on this, you have to rewind it by hand in the standard fashion. As the film goes through the camera, this thing here will move to let you know that you've got the film correctly loaded. A tab or a memo, so you can rip the back of the box off and put that in there so you know what you're shooting. This is how you would open the back up. You push down and the back opens up. So here's our pressure plate, quite a large pressure plate, some rollers, very nice, well engineered. It's an auto take-up system, you just have to pull the film across. This will grab it and it will wind it on. You can see we've got a vertical metal shutter, flash sync at 125th. Konica said a 90th if it was a non-dedicated flash gun, but it will sync up to 125th of a second. This is obviously where your film goes. On this side, you've got the battery housing, and to get into the batteries, you've got to push this down, and then it comes off like so. So this is where the batteries go. And as usual, it says use Sakura film, which was Konica's own brand of film. And this camera holds 4 AAA batteries. There is another adapter available that holds AA batteries. Again, I don't have that. I think this was pretty much the standard sort of grip that was available for it. So yeah, very easy to change the batteries, very easy to get them. No little button cells or anything. You can see this is where it connects the power into the camera. So you just hook this on, pull it round until it clicks, and there you go. Right, let's have a look at the top. Obviously, big difference. It does take a bit of getting used to is that there's no film advance lever here. This is the shutter release electronic soft touch, and there's no lock around this button, but there is here. You can see this little gauge has moved to the off position, so now it won't work. Below this we have the single mode and the continuous mode. Continuous is about 2 frames a second, so it's a bit like a winder. It's not really a motor drive. It doesn't get anywhere near 5 frames a second or faster. This is the on-off switch, so you turn this to the side. You can see that the on is got this little dot in it now, so the camera is now turned on. This is the shutter speed selector. This camera is a shutter preferred automatic, so you can set your shutter speed on here. It is all electronic. Without any batteries it won't work. The shutter is electronically controlled. It's not a mechanical shutter like on the earlier Konicas. And there's a little button down here that if you push that, it's a bit fiddly this bit, you can move this down again into the AEL, and that's exposure lock, so particularly useful for say backlit situations. It will remember the meter reading. The meter in this camera unfortunately doesn't work. It's a manual only camera, so that lever can go back to the on position. This at the top at the front here is a self timer. If you push this down, you can see that the LED is flashing. It's not beeping, and it will start to flash quicker, and then it will take the picture. So yeah, that's the self timer. The hot shoe on this is broken. There were dedicated flashes for the camera. It used silicon cells for metering, whereas the FS1 uses the old cadmium sulfide, I think they were, galenium. So the metering was pretty good on it. Inside the viewfinder, on the left hand side, there's a list of apertures, and each one has a corresponding LED that would light up. Unfortunately on this one it doesn't work. Over on this side we've got exposure compensation, 2 stops in 3rd stop increments each way. Very nice, good place to have it. Standard rewind crank pulls up, I do believe, or not. I think it does pull up, actually it doesn't need to. And we have the ASA dial around the outside, so standard form, you lift it up and we're going to set it to 400 because that's the film we're going to be putting in it. The fact the meter doesn't work doesn't matter, you can still use it as a manual mode with an external meter. Okay, on the bottom we have a tripod bush which is wildly offset from the centre of the lens, which I don't particularly like, and we have a usual push in to rewind the film. Yeah, you don't have to lift up the rewind crank because it's got this cutout at the bottom there. So that is the basic overview of it. This one happens to be wearing a 50mm 1.8, which looks as though it's starting to get a bit of fungus around the outside edges. So that needs to be stopped. Other than that, pretty standard, pretty conventional. To mount the lens, red dot to red dot, and then twist clockwise until it locks into place. The lens has the aperture ring at the back, so you can adjust the aperture. And if you want to use it in the programmed automatic mode, you make sure it's lined up with the AE. Some lenses have EE on them. Hexagon lenses are very highly regarded. They're very undervalued. If you're looking for very high quality lenses for a very affordable price, Hexagons are well worth considering. Right, let's pop a film in it. What shutter speed are we on? Quite a slow shutter speed. So it does stand on its nose, which is nice. Open the back up, there, so you can actually see it. See if there's anything else I've left off here. There is no depth of field preview on this camera, which is a bit strange considering it was supposed to be aimed at professionals. And yeah, that seems a little bit odd. There is a very, very rare version of this, which is a half frame version, which is called the Half Pro. That's obviously a half frame version, but I don't think many professionals would be shooting half frame, not if they're earning a living from it. Right, let's pop a bit of test film in there, another one of my test spools. So this is supposed to be foolproof to load. You pull that across, close the back, you turn it on, and it is on. Didn't like that. So I don't know whether these batteries are weak, or I don't actually know what the fault is with this camera, but yeah, it doesn't seem to want to work too well. It's got electronic issues. The FS1 was renowned for electronics issues. You have to remember this was the very early days of electronics in cameras. A lot of photographers didn't trust electronics, and you can kind of see the reason why. They preferred manual cameras that didn't rely on batteries. It might be that this film isn't any good. There's no mark, unlike on some of them where there's a mark here that you pull it across to. Also, those sprockets are not in great condition. Not supposed to wind on its own, but the motor's spinning, but nobody's home. Let's try it with a different film, see if it's to do with the leader of that causing the problems. Let's see what we got in here. Never goes right in these films of mine, does it? At least the batteries are easy enough to do on this one. So pull that across. Nope. It's supposed to have a self-loading when you close the back door, it winds on system, but I don't know whether it has or not. Now I can't close the back. Oh, this is going well. Oh, that goes better. So that seems to have wound on. Has that gone to number 1? So yeah, it was my film that was the issue. It doesn't like my homemade film. It's getting a bit tatty now. So that's how you would load it. Exposure compensation wants to be on 0. It's a 400 film, so we set the shutter speed about 250. And there you go, folks. The very last proper Konica camera. It's quite heavy, it's quite chunky. You know you've got it in your hands, but ergonomically it's quite nice. And having the option of that left-handed shutter release, I think that would be pretty good. But yeah, You can see it's yeah, it's winding itself on. The film's going around, so you know that it's moving through the camera. So I'll see if that thing there will move. Oop. This one there's a bit of a delay. I don't know why. It takes one shot and then it sort of waits, and then it takes another one. I don't see that thing doing very much. I guess it fluctuates up and down. Not quite sure how that works, to be honest. Well, there you go. It's driven off the film, and as the film goes through the camera, it sort of wavers up and down. Not convinced about that. But there you are, folks. Konica FT-1. Very affordable. Nobody really likes them or wants them, but they're good quality cameras actually. It's just they kind of missed the Lomo sort of thing. They haven't really been made popular at all, but yeah, they're well worth considering if you can find a good one. This one is due for repair. It will get sorted out eventually. I'm getting to have more and more non-working cameras. There's quite a lot to do. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. Comment, questions, queries, etc. down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell and all that usual rubbish. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.